everyone, and welcome back to my channel, True Crime and Felines. My name is Brandy, and every Friday I bring you a true crime case or mystery with one or more of my fabulous felines. That is, unless something happens that prevents me from getting you a video, which last week it did, and I apologize for that. I was having internet issues all week, and it didn't get fixed till like Thursday. And I had this big zit pop up on my face, which is kind of going away. But what prevented me from doing the video the most is what happened on Wednesday. I got a call from my husband who works at a car dealership, and he stated, "Bring the carrier. We got a little girl here." This little girl has taken up the majority of my time. She was found in a car engine and ran across the shop. And they finally caught her. An owner could not be found. The shelters were full, so we brought her home. This is Darth Kittius. She's very small. She's only about 7 or 8 weeks old. Alright, you go play. So, before you come at me about having another cat, I know what I said on my Q&A video, that I didn't plan on getting any more cats. But, to be fair, I said I didn't plan on getting any more cats. They honestly just fall in your lap, and that is the life of a cat rescuer. They appear out of nowhere, don't give you any warning, and you have to adapt. I know, you want to go play. Yes. Alright, go play. Okay, she's gonna play on her tower, so you'll see a lot of her. So if the angle's off, I'm sorry. I figure you want to watch the kitten. So anyway, the shelters were full, and the next thing that they usually do is let the cat go in the wild. And I didn't want to contribute to the fact that we'll have another feral cat in the wild if she survived, and then goes on to have more babies that are unwanted. So that's why she's now with me, and we will get her spayed and everything and not contribute to the unwanted population. So I apologize for not having a video last week, but I hope you all understand. For my returning subscribers, welcome back, my feline friends, and a big shout out to my feline fans who are members of this channel. I saw some of you have flipped over to the 1 month badges. Those are really cool, and I love seeing the custom emojis in the comments as well. Okay, let's get into this week's case. This case deals with a 17-year-old girl who had an inappropriate relationship with a teacher, and it ended in a violent attack. So, let's get started. Ashley Reeves was a 17-year-old girl that lived in Millstadt, Illinois. She was a junior in high school. She did well in class, and she had many friends. She even had a boyfriend named Jeremy, and they had been together for approximately 2 years. Ashley actually loved to play basketball, and she did so whenever possible. She often would go to parks to play basketball with her friends. On April 27th, 2006, Ashley told her parents that she was going for a job interview in Fairview Heights, which was about 20 minutes from her home. She also stated that after the interview, she was going to stop at a park and play basketball, but she would be home by her 10 p.m. curfew. No fighting. So she took a bag with a change of clothes in it, and she left for her job interview about 3:30 p.m. that day. Ashley didn't have a car at the time, so she ended up borrowing her boyfriend Jeremy's car to go to this interview. Now later that night, Ashley's mom became concerned. It was about 10:30 p.m., which was past her curfew time, and Ashley was not home yet. And this was actually very unlike her. She did follow the rules and was always home on or before her curfew. Ashley's mom had called Ashley's cell phone many times, but there was never any answer. Ashley's mom knew that something was probably wrong, so she went ahead and called the police. At first, the police were kind of trying to calm Ashley's mom down by saying, she's 17, she's probably out with her friends, she lost track of time, the same old kind of typical teenage rebellious. Ashley's mom just kind of knew better. But the police still took the report and said that they would keep an eye out for her. Now, it would be early the next morning that the police actually would find Jeremy's car abandoned at the side of the road in the city limits of Bellevue, which is about 15 minutes from Ashley's home. Inside the car, they found Ashley's bag of change of clothes, but there was no Ashley. That's when the police realized that this wasn't some just rebellious teen breaking curfew, that they actually think something happened to her. So they started asking questions and doing an investigation. Of course, the first person that they would question would be Ashley's boyfriend, Jeremy. Jeremy explained that he had lent Ashley his car and that she left for the interview, and that's the last time that he saw her. They did realize that Jeremy was pretty upset that Ashley was missing, and he had stated that he had tried calling and texting her many times to no avail. And they quickly figured out that Jeremy had nothing to do with Ashley's disappearance. As they continued their investigation, however, something kept bothering them. You see, what they kept saying is, why would Ashley go play basketball in another town where she doesn't really know anyone, unless she did know somebody in that town or she was going to meet someone in that town? Since Ashley was only 17, her phone was under her mother's account. So her mother was able to get the phone records really quickly on Ashley's cell phone. And as they went through the records, one number kept popping up over and over. And that phone number belonged to a man named Samson Shelton. So Ashley's mom called Sam's number and asked him, "Have you seen Ashley?" Sam quickly said no, he hasn't seen Ashley. And before Ashley's mom could say anything else, Samson just hung up. That's not suspicious. So who was this Samson guy? Well, Samson was a 26-year-old man, and he was also a driver's ed teacher and gym teacher in another school. Many female students would refer to him as the cute teacher, but there was a lot of students that thought that he was just full of himself. Samson also wrestled professionally on the side, and he went by the moniker the teacher. What they found out was when Ashley was in 7th grade in 2001, Samson was her teacher, and then she went to the junior high school and he didn't teach there. But apparently in 2006, the two had ran into each other and they started talking and supposedly became friends. When police started questioning Ashley's friends would tell them that she was actually cheating on Jeremy and she was seeing this older man. And this older man was Samson Shelton. Her friends would say that they would often meet up in Bellevue, where Samson lived with his mother and grandmother. This is also right close to where Jeremy's car was found abandoned on the side of the road. So finding all of this out was certainly a shock for Ashley's family, but the priority was still finding Ashley because she was still missing. So authorities tracked down Samson and took him in for questioning. And at this time, Ashley had been missing for 18 hours. Police began interrogating Samson, and at first he had a cool, calm demeanor. He was very cooperative. He explained that him and Ashley were just friends that shared a love of basketball, and they'd get together once in a while and play. But that was it. But then police kind of pushed with the hard questions. They would tell him what Ashley's friends were saying and that the two were romantic. And at this time, Samson actually tried to then victimize himself. His story changed a little bit. Instead, that he actually said that, again, him and Ashley were just friends, but Ashley was beginning to become infatuated with him. He stated that he would, spurn her advances, and then she became obsessed, and she started calling him day and night, just constantly. Samson stated that for the last couple days he actually 100% was avoiding Ashley because he was hoping that she would just move on. So police started to press a little bit harder. They didn't really believe Samson's story that Ashley was infatuated with him. And if that was the case, they just had this hunch that he had something to do with her disappearance. So they pressed harder and kept him there for hours. And Samson's initial story began to break down. He finally did admit that the two were romantically involved, and then he also admitted that he was actually with Ashley the day before when she disappeared. However, he stated that the two of them were in his car, and he told Ashley that he was ending the relationship. Samson explained that Ashley became very angry and began to scream at him. So he pulled the car over and told her to get out. She refused, so he got out of the car, went over on the passenger side, and he pulled her out and left her by the side of the road. Samson stated that when he drove off, she was very much alive and still yelling at him. He also made a statement that there is no way he would have harmed her because he has a weak stomach, and that he can't even watch a horror movie without getting sick. Samson stated that although the relationship was inappropriate, he still cared for Ashley, and stated that he was worried that she never made it home. Now, remember, the police have these phone records, right? So they kind of lay some stuff out for Samson and state, well, if you left her by the side of the road like you said, you never checked in with her after that. All these calls and texts, and they just stop the day she disappeared. So if you really did care about her, why didn't you check with her to make sure she made it home? Samson really didn't have an answer for that. And then it got worse because they were able to pull tapes from a country bar where right after apparently this incident, Sam went to the country bar and drank and partied the night away. It was now 12 hours into this interrogation with Samson, and police just kept pressing. Samson's story kept changing. Then finally, one of the police officers tried to appeal to his family side of things and said, if I was to tell your grandmother that you pulled a 17-year-old girl out of the car and left her on the side of the road to fend for herself, what would she think of you? At that point, Samson started crying, and then he started telling a story that was truly horrible. Samson began by stating that when he stated he pulled Ashley out of the car, that was true. However, when he pulled her out of the car, he had put her in like this chokehold, this wrestling move chokehold. And when he got her out of the car, she was kind of struggling. And then he heard a pop, and Ashley's body just went limp. Samson figured with the chokehold and her struggling that her neck got broke and that she was dead, and he panicked. So right there on the side of the road, he actually drug Ashley's body into the woods, a fair ways away from the road, and he was just going to leave her there. However, when he put her down, he realized that Ashley was still alive, that her neck was broke, but she was still alive. So he decided to go a step further, and he started strangling her with his bare hands. He did this for a while till his hands got tired, and when he stopped, he realized that Ashley still wasn't dead. She was still breathing. So then he did something horrible. He took off his belt and turned her over on her belly, and he put the belt around her neck and pulled it and put his foot on the back of, like on her back, and pulled the belt as much as he could with all his might until the belt snapped. But here's the thing. The belt snapped and he checked her. She was still alive. She was still breathing. So then he went back and choked her with his bare hands again until he heard a gurgle and foam started coming out of her mouth. When then he was satisfied that she was dead, finally, he left her on the cold ground, deep in the woods, went back to his car, and then went out drinking and partying that night. So after this story came out, authorities were horrified, obviously. And they did convince Samson to show them where he left Ashley's body. So off they went with Samson, and by this time it was dark. It had also rained the night before, and so Samson was having trouble telling authorities exactly where the body was. He was confused. He thought it was over there. Maybe it was over there. And authorities began to think that Samson was just leading them on this wild goose chase. So armed with flashlights, they checked the area one last time until they did find Ashley. When they found her, Ashley was laying on her back and her hands were up by her chest and her tongue was sticking out of her mouth, and she had hundreds of insect bites all over her body. Authorities stood over Ashley, and this wave of emotion just swept over them that they weren't able to save her. But then something happened. Ashley's hands moved, and they realized she was breathing. It was shallow, but she was breathing. So they immediately called an ambulance. 30 hours left in the cold. Her neck broke, strangled 3 different times. This girl was still alive. Now, there is a video of police body cam of them finding Ashley, and I will link it in the description box down below. But just be warned, it tugs at your heartstrings. You're on the edge of your seat. Even though you know what's going to happen, Anyway, so the ambulance was called and they got there, and Ashley was very in critical condition. And one of the EMTs even stated that they don't think they were even going to make it out of the woods before she passed. But Ashley was a fighter. They did not know how much of a fighter she was. She not only made it out of the woods, but she made it to the hospital where they put her in an induced coma so her body could heal. Now, Samson was promptly arrested for first-degree attempted murder. Here's the funny part. When he was taken into custody, he asked for a private bathroom, in jail, because apparently he suffered from urinary stress disorder, and it would just be so miserable for him if he had to pee in front of other people. His request was denied. After his arrest, Samson showed his true self. He was a true narcissist. He showed no remorse or no empathy for what he did to Ashley. And even with his own detailed confession, he pleaded not guilty. In a shocking decision, the court allowed Samson to be put out on bail. So he was put on house arrest and was allowed to, live with his mother and grandmother until the trial started, which would have been about a year later. Now, after that year was up, right before the trial was about to start, the police were called to Samson's home. His mother had called the police and the ambulance. Apparently, Samson had tried to off himself by taking a concoction of pills and a bunch of alcohol. And when they got to the scene, he seemed unresponsive. He also had taken a marker and wrote on his chest, "Do not resuscitate." So, EMTs ignored that message and then, tried to revive him. Well, Samson all of a sudden sprang to life when they tried to revive him, and he started throwing punches at the EMTs to not revive him, but yet he was responsive. So, did he really take those pills, or was it all a ploy? I don't know. Anyway, they took him to the hospital, had to handcuff him to the bed, but took him to the hospital. And at the hospital, he would end up making racial slurs at the nurse that was taking care of him, and at one point he ended up kicking her in the face. A judge questioned Samson's, mental state and ordered an evaluation. Now, the prosecutors would come forward and state that, this was just Samson's way of trying to garner empathy from the jurors, but beating up EMTs and kicking a nurse in the face sort of derailed that plan, I think. Now, regardless, the evaluation was done, and a psychiatrist did deem Samson fit for trial, so the trial continued. Now, as far as Ashley, she had a long road to recovery, and she actually did not remember the attack specifically. She remembered a fight in the car and being pulled out of the car, and then that's the last thing that she remembered until she woke up in the hospital. So Ashley's family did not want Ashley to try and remember or try to relive this attack, that maybe it's best that she doesn't remember. Because at first she didn't even know that Samson attacked her. She didn't think that would happen, but everybody was telling her he confessed, he did it, and she was kind of heartbroken over that. But anyway, they didn't want her to go through this court trial, so they agreed to a plea deal. Samson agreed to the plea deal as well, and then he was sentenced to 20 years in prison. He will be eligible for his first parole request in 2024. As for Ashley, she made an amazing recovery. Like I said, she's not able to actually remember the attack that happened, but she remembers that she was the one that was breaking off the relationship with Samson, and he got angry and pulled her out of the car. It only took 2 months after the attack, with a lot of physical therapy, that Ashley was able to talk, eat, and walk again. She graduated from high school with her class, and after that began volunteering at a violence protection center. Today, Ashley has 2 children. She's very private, so it's unknown if she's married or not, but what we do know is that her and Jeremy had broken up, so these 2 children are not Jeremy's. Now, she is quoted as saying, "I'm a fighter, and I just keep wanting to push myself harder and harder. Don't give up. Don't ever give up on yourself. Just keep fighting." That Ashley is a strong one. Now in 2021, Lifetime Network made a movie out of this called Left for Dead, the Ashley Reeves story, that I will link to in the description. So what are your thoughts on this case? Technically, in Illinois, the age of consent is 17 years old. So Samson wouldn't be facing any statutory rape charges, nor would he be put on any sex offender registry. So why did he snap? Was it because he may lose his job? Or was it just out of anger? Do you think Samson was breaking up with Ashley, or do you think Ashley was breaking up with Samson? I'd love to hear what you think in the comments down below. If you'd like to become a feline friend, just hit that subscribe button. And if you would like to become a feline fan, hit the join button for specialty badges and custom emojis. And we will be back next Friday. I shouldn't get any more kittens. I don't know even where she's at. Oh, she's running over here. Sorry. I thought she'd be on camera more. She hangs out on this tower all the time. So, of course, when I get the camera out, she runs off. She's playing with my dog right now. She loves my dog. Anyway, we'll be back next Friday with another true crime case or history. And please let me know if you have any case suggestions that you would like to hear as well, because you guys are my source of very obscure cases I've never heard about. So, thank you guys, and we will see you next week. Bye!